broadcast. So, good morning, everyone. It's Rina Little from Littleworks Indie Media with Geekspeak today. And do you want to introduce yourself, Greg?
Yeah, I'm Greg with Original 72 Creative. Welcome, everybody.
And today we're going to talk about online sales or holiday sales strategies. Is that what is
Mhm.
our topic exactly? I think I wrote it down
Yeah,
differently.
strategies, but also, what did you call it when we were prepping? Not really strategies, but
So it's a lot of little tactics,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
And there is some strategy in there, but it's strategy is kind of a bigger picture thing, and you really want to understand your business goals and your marketing plan overall in order to create your holiday strategy. But if you haven't got a huge strategy organized already, then probably think about some of these tactics and approaches, and this will help you get through this season, and then really give you a sense of what you need to sit down and do earlier on next year for your holiday planning. And it really depends on how big your company is. If you're smaller, you can be a little bit more agile with your marketing. But if you can move away from being all agile and have a good plan and structure in place, then you're going to actually feel a lot less stressed and overwhelmed. Because typically, if you're offering holiday promotions, then typically you're doing a lot during that holiday sales season where there's a lot of selling happening. There's a lot of shipping that's happening and all that sort of stuff. Excuse me for 1 second, Greg. You take it away.
hmm Yeah, I was gonna mention the way we chatted prepping for the topic. I really enjoyed what you had mentioned about a first place to start with before you even define anything for the upcoming season is to really look to the past in
Yeah.
what you've done in the previous years, how successful they were, to gauge that and sort of kickstart where you might want to start for the upcoming season.
Yeah. And when it comes to testing and tweaking, sometimes you don't want to abandon the whole channel or strategy or tactic or whatever it is, if it doesn't play out the first time. So sometimes when you do something once, you don't really know how to do it properly. And if you're doing it all completely on your own, then you might want to actually do a bit more research on how best practices will can carry you through. So, for example, if you have an event, and I see this all the time. We were actually just talking about this to a little bit of a degree, which reminded me. If you're going to have a holiday event that you're organizing in your space, if you have a brick and mortar space or a holiday party, a client appreciation party, or anything like that, to attract more clients and sales from your clients and reward your clients, all that sort of stuff. If it didn't work out the first time, sometimes it's because we put out like I got an invitation to an event yesterday that's on Friday. I can't go because I've already planned my Friday. So,
Mhm.
like we have to look at all of the stuff that we do, and it doesn't matter if we did it 2 days before last time. There was probably some mitigating reason that you were run off your feet. You thought someone else was doing it. Something like that can come up. But what you want to do is attempt to figure out where you can improve. So take what you did last year. Don't throw out things just because they weren't really great, like super successful, but see how you can improve on those things, especially the things that are easy for you to do. So we all have things that we like to do. Some people like to host people in their space because they have that sort of personality, and they like to host in general. And some people can't stand that. They just they cringe the whole way through. Um, Figure out what you like to do, what your strengths are, and then find out who else is on your team, what can they do, what are their strengths, and start to delegate and organize your holidays. Now, we talked about when should things happen, and there are a
Mhm.
few ideas I have on that. And that what I like to do is work backwards. Figure out which holidays you're going to run your promotions for. So some people will be obviously organizing for the Christmas, Hanukkah holiday season um, festival, friend gifts, family gifts, things like that. Some people will be more primarily taking advantage of Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And if you're not for profit, it might be Giving Tuesday. So, what you want to do is plot those things on your calendar and work backwards. So, some of the things that we want to mention, and I actually have a blog post somewhere, I should pop that up. I want to mention is that do we want to put out our newsletter about our specials, promotion, gifts, ideas, things like that? um, Too close? Like when is too close? When is too far away? So that's always the question. So look at your sales. Look at your, especially if you have online sales. Look at your online sales results for the arc, the buying arc, and
Hmm.
figure out to get more people in earlier on so that they spend their money. When do you need to start doing that? Not so early that you're irritating people because everybody gets uptight about when you're putting out your holiday marketing. We don't want to do it too early. We're not Costco. We're not selling to wholesale. We're not wholesalers selling to retailers. But figure out what is a good time. So look at your last year's sales data, figure out your calendar, and then try and create some marketing ideas based on that flow. And think about things like if you're running an online store, figure out things like is it something that needs to be shipped? So, when is the last date that you can get something shipped with Canada Post or whatever shipping service you're using across different provinces of Canada or down to the States or wherever else you're shipping? And start marking those on your calendar so that you're making sure that you're giving your clients the countdown. This is the last day for you to get your orders in for guaranteed delivery, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah, I was thinking after we chatted about that that that's probably very much specific to like the Christmas Hanukkah season because that's when people are actually buying gifts that they need to receive to give. Whereas like a thing like Boxing Day, Cyber Monday,
Yeah,
other holidays like that, it's typically people buying things for themselves.
yeah,
So the shipping time doesn't necessarily need to be factored into to those holidays, but
yeah,
definitely Christmas when people are buying online because they're buying things for other people. There, you need to consider, like you said, that that shipping time. When can I actually get this out, and factor that into when you do your promotions and have that time period where this is where the bulk of my sales are going to happen so that all of them can be shipped out.
yeah. And then if you aren't already offering gift wrapping at this point, I would add that to your roster because that as a service is a really good idea. You could either add it as a value add for the things that you're shipping for people, or you can add it as a paid service, and it ends up being, or sometimes people actually put that money towards charity. So if you buy the gift, if you choose gift wrapping, we'll send it to your people with a card and whatever, and that the money that covers that cost will go to charity. So that's another way of doing it. Another values add. So it's a value add and a values add.
Hmm. Now, for holiday sales strategies and things like that, what's your thought on providing additional value versus discounting or that
Yeah,
type of a thing? Do you have preferences, or does it really depend on what the service or products are that people sell?
yeah, yeah. It really depends. So if you know that you can get a client and that client has a really large lifetime value with you, so let's say they're signing up for a membership or like those gift boxes that go out every month, you can actually discount quite a bit because the first one ends up being a loss leader. So you might take a loss or not make any profit on that particular one item because you know you're going to get the recurring revenue on future sales that are already guaranteed because they're buying a membership. So that kind of thing. So it does really depend. Um, A lot of people like discounts, and if your profit margins can handle it, then that is a nice way to do that. But value add is actually kind of fun because people feel like they're getting more in some way. It's like a psychological thing where they feel like they're getting more for what they're paying for. And if you can choose the added items carefully and well, then that can be a really significant shift. I was looking at a website the other day, and what they had done, which was really interesting, is they had actually organized specific bundles. So this company does eco-friendly cleaning products and things like that. So you could get the kitchen bundle, and it came with a whole lot of stuff to clean your kitchen. You can get the bathroom bundle, and it doesn't really seem like that much. I didn't, in my mind, I didn't cost out the items individually to see like what kind of deep discount I was getting, but
Hmm.
it seemed quite reasonable. And I think that if you can key into that sort of psychology of the right pricing with a lot of stuff, you just feel like it's Christmas every day when you get
Hmm.
a bunch of things. And so that can also work. So it really depends. But I
Yeah,
don't really think that,
perceived value
yeah,
is sort of what I'm thinking, right? Because I'll tell you one thing that a client of mine is running right now, and we talked about a couple of different options for what type of a promotion they might want to do right now to generate some business. Was people think, oh, if I'm getting like 10 or 12% off, it's like, yeah, it's only 10 or 12%. It's not a lot. But what we decided for this round to try was we pay the tax because
yeah,
nobody likes paying taxes, right? But it's still only 12% because they have to pay GST and PST on these products. But so it's only still 12%. But that mindset of like, oh, I don't have to pay the tax is like
taxes.
that other like I'm screwing the government or something, but it's still
Yeah,
only 12% off. So the
yeah,
mentality around the promotions that you come up with are really big for sometimes the success of whether or not your promotion does well or doesn't do as well.
yeah. And the one thing that you want to consider is if it's worth it to do a deep discount on a product that you're only going to sell one of, are you going to be able to do the volume to make that up, to make that worth your while? And I think that's where people really have to know their market well and and do marketing well. Because I've seen people do that where they sell a thing that people only want one of, like they don't want five of them.
Hmm.
Um, and you see those ads on actually on Facebook and Twitter a lot where there's a gadget you might need a couple for your home, like you could use, it either attaches to your faucet or is a drawer organizer or something like that. um, the person might only think that they want one on that purchase, but then if they're offered a number of them at a better discount, like a volume discount, then sometimes they'll do that because they think, oh, I could actually probably use that in my drawer downstairs too, and my mom would probably love that too. And the next thing you know, you're buying five of them. So if you can do that, that works well. But to give a discount on one thing without having that opportunity to buy multiples, or that they might not even need multiples, that's probably not your best way. It's better to figure out what do you call it? Pairing it with something else that goes with it.
So we kind of got into a little bit of more of the meat of some promotions and strategies, but I want to get back and get your feelings on the timeline again because when we got the timeline down to like actually when you're promoting, we kind of I feel we got sidetracked on starting to promote, but I
Yeah,
wanted to, I know there's also prep time in coming up with these ideas and putting
yeah,
these ideas together, getting visuals and copy prepared. So we should talk a little bit about that as well.
yeah. I think there's some really funny memes going around right now in the marketing community where clients will say, "Oh, I want to run it's December 22nd. I want to run a Christmas promo, and can you get me some imagery to go with this social post that I'm going to put up tomorrow?" And I think that's the one thing. That's where people get burnout and overwhelmed, and they feel like they failed, is because the timing's not great. So um, definitely, I like to always have a marketing plan in my mind that I'm working at my whole next year. Sometime in November, actually, is when I do it for my own business, and that gives you the time to sit back and organize your deadlines. You can organize your deadline that way. You actually organize around things like, because I plan my vacations at the same time. Okay, you can actually organize your whole life in advance. Give me 1 second. I'm having an asthma attack. This is what this is. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, planning for sure is key to success, and I know that for sure. Further,
Yeah,
the further you can plan in advance, the more successful you will be in actually implementing the
yeah,
promotions and getting through those holidays as
for sure.
possible.
So generally, the smaller the business, the later the holiday stuff happens, unless you've got a good coach. Yes, planning is key. I'm not sure who the Facebook user is, but planning is key. Absolutely. So when I go through something like a promotional time or some kind of campaign that I'm working through, if I notice while I'm doing it that there's something that I should have done this. This would have really made a big difference on how this played out. It's not perfect. I'll make notes. I have notes on my spreadsheet. My spreadsheet is my planner, and I keep those notes there because I forget everything. So I put notes down there, and then I book my time. Usually you book your time to go through your business stuff quarterly at least, and hopefully monthly. And so you're going to want to plan in advance. So I like to be looking at my holiday stuff, holiday season stuff in July. I look at who are my clients that I've got, who's actually going to be needing some really good support during that time, who's not going to be needing, who's going to be taking the holidays, who's going to be closing down their offices, and I work everything backwards when I'm going to need extra people to help. And if this is going to run into key development time for my projects, my sites, and you just need to sit down and look at your spreadsheet and your calendar like regularly to avoid this and work backwards. So you figure out when you want to launch something and you do your timeline backwards. Am I going to run a campaign on Facebook? Is it going to run for 2 weeks? Is it going to run for 4 weeks? Um, do I need to do a significant amount of testing on those ads, or do I think that the ads that I ran this year are going to work for next year, or that sort of thing? And the
And
answer is that they never work. They never work from one year to the next because the algorithm changes and the platform changes so much. So you're going to want to build in time for someone to work that stuff out. You can't just hire a Facebook expert and expect results immediately. You're going to want to always be testing and tweaking and running ads so that you're ready for these moments and you have really good audience
mhm.
established. You understand your visuals really well. You know which calls to action work best and all of that stuff. You've already done all the footwork.
And all of that is really going to be hashed out uh, as well when you decide where you're going to plan to do this marketing. If you're going to plan to do it on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, or if you're doing an email newsletter or some other method, paid advertising on Google, whatever it is, you're gonna your planning will lead you to which one will be the best or deciding which one you're going to do depending on the demographic you're hitting for your business and things like that. One will be better than the other. Will also determine what type of promotions you might come up with depending on where you're putting it out.
Yeah. So, what kind of languaging, what kind of visuals do you need in
Hmm.
advance?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's all super important to think about. Um, and when it comes to events in Vancouver, there are two things that I notice. You want to get things organized and invited out about a month in advance, depending on, that's a general kind of rule. But people won't commit to anything until about 2 weeks before if you're in Vancouver.
Now, speaking of me mentioning email newsletter, we did have a brief chat about newsletters in general, long form versus, I forget the term you called it.
E-blasts.
E-blasts, yes.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference of those and
Yeah.
effectiveness of both of them?
Yeah. So I feel like I fall for the newsletter trap, really easily in my own personal use of email.
Hmm.
Um, a newsletter I think of as something that has multiple pieces of content in it, and it's fairly lengthy and it's interesting. There's lots of really interesting things on there. But when I see that go in my email, my thing is, oh, that's a lot. I'm not going to read that right now. That's going to take some time. I'll sit down with my coffee later or my glass of wine later and I'll read that, and then I don't. So I prefer e-blasts because the subject the subject of the e-blast is in the subject line, so I can already tell what this piece of news is going to be about. I can already self-select. Is this something that I'm interested in already? Great. And if it's an e-blast, then I can go and look really quickly and see if it's something that I want to flag for purchase, rather than the newsletter where it sits and I never see it. So I recommend a more frequent e-blasts contact for e-blast rather than one newsletter, and that way you can keep your action call to one thing. We want to get that person to do the one thing. So on a newsletter, you're trying to focus on a primary call to action, but really you've put in a lot of stuff in there. So don't give them choice. It's better to give them one thing, and the choice is yes or no. And it's also better to segment your list and make sure you're giving the right people the right call to action.
Hmm. I feel the shorter form e-blasts is definitely the way to go, at least from my perspective, because I find newsletters in general. I don't know how many other people get. I'm assuming a lot of people get a lot of email newsletters from lots of companies, and I tend to see it, like briefly look at it for split seconds, and hit that delete key. And I don't even keep it
Yeah,
around. So if you're putting out an email, you want it to be like, I even find that a much shorter attention span than someone coming to your website homepage and determining if they're going to stay or not. Just because everybody's inundated with so much email, it's got to be right to the point, right away, and not a lot of content, because they'll factor in on that first view of what this is. And this will go to your point of how important the email headline is, or the subject line is. And I know
yeah.
you have a little bit of a contention with some of your some people.
Oh yeah.
But
I still I still have somebody who I absolutely adore sending me emails with November newsletter, and I just cringe every time. And I've mentioned it a number of times, and and I cannot get them to understand how important it is not to put November newsletter.
and would you have a suggestion of, the most important thing to get across in the subject,
Yeah,
for
yes,
people?
yes, I do. The what is it that you want them to do? What is your promotion? Feature that maybe with a benefit statement. You need to have some kind of emotion, what it's going to solve for that person to really sort of get them. I use on my website, in my blog section, I have a list of tools that I use, and one of them is a not generator, a title checker,
Hmm.
and it will tell you what the problems are with your title and how to fix them. And I really like that. So you can just head over to my website and find the tools. It's it's in the tools blog post, which is highlighted on my category section. And I use that because I find that super helpful. I'm not particularly great at writing subject lines. We get caught up in telling people what things are rather than and focusing on features and benefits. And that's not even, I mean, it used to, we moved away from features to benefits at some point about 5 years ago. And now we've moved away from benefits to, I forgot what they call it now, but like the experience of what it is, the lifestyle or whatever it is that it's going to allow the user to have. So
Mm-hmm.
that's it's a feeling. It's really about creating feelings and and the desire for that feeling or the desire to attain the feeling.
Yeah, and it for me, it needs to almost be maybe a slightly shortened form, direct to the point version of whatever your promotion headline
Yes.
is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, just saying, September newsletter doesn't really cut it.
no, definitely not. I
I'm, I'm concerned for you.
know I'm really struggling. I apologize to
That's okay.
everyone.
We only have 4 minutes left. From everything we've discussed, are there any last points we might want to get across in our last 4 minutes here?
Um, I think I've covered almost everything that I had intended to. But
That's
but
awesome. I wanted to mention also that recycling promotions is would you say recycling promotions is something worthwhile?
yeah, it can be. So there are um, tech companies that run the same promotion every year on Black Friday,
Hmm.
and um, the thing that you want to do is make sure that's not a promotion that you want to run at other times. Sometimes the most fun thing to do with those repeat ones is to use a collaborate with somebody on it, and we're getting together again to offer this really unique deal where we're gonna share these two things together for the perfect combo, whatever it is. Um, and that's actually a nice strategy to do collaborations like that because then it's going out to your email list and it's going out to someone else's email list, and that can be really useful way to amplify your efforts at a time where there's a lot of competition for your attention and money spent.
Yeah, something I wanted to reiterate about doing online or holiday sales and things like that is that, or just promotions in general. I feel you don't want to do them too often because
No,
what will happen
yeah,
is, at least for me, you get your potential customer or actual customer who might be repeat in the process of, oh, I will wait for their next sale type of a situation, um, which I don't feel is the best way to go because you sort of get that maybe discount brand um,
yeah,
label.
yeah. Sometimes that's a problem, but I actually just did that. There's a company that puts a sale out on every year. I just bought it. I bought it for the second time this year, but they send me a year's worth of something,
Mm,
so it works out perfectly. So I
hmm.
am buying in bulk, so they do make a good margin on that.
But if it's something that they only do once a year, then I'm not so concerned with that. It's really the ones that like every
I
month
don't think,
there's a
yeah,
new percentage off discount of whatever.
yeah. This company doesn't do it every month, but they definitely do it regularly. I do see it quite regularly, and it works for
Mhm.
them. but they're in sort of a subscription model type thing. So they're like buy your subscription or buy one off to try or buy a year supply. So that's the model that it works. But you're right. If you have a tool shop, do you want to like run a every 2 months a promotion on your power tools or a certain brand of power tools or whatever it is? You probably don't want to do that necessarily. But you could do. There are other companies that offer things that are always discounted. Those are the ones that bug me. They're usually selling training or something like that, and it's just always discounted. So they create this value, this perceived value list, and then they go, and you get this, and you get this. This is worth this much, and this is worth this much, and this, and it's really not because they never actually sell those things individually for those amounts. It's always in a bundle, and it's always to sell the one thing always. And
Mm-hmm.
so those work. They do put time. They do put urgency on that. So um, they don't run that. They might run that program like 4 times a year or something like that, where there's it's a course and you get in on it. Um, but I've noticed that those things go by a lot. They always seem to be on or they're always coming on. So I don't really worry about it too much that one time that I see it.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to let people know that if you guys are watching this, ask some questions in the chat. We'll be available to answer them after the live. And if you guys are watching this not in Cyberpunk Geeks, please join us in Cyberpunk Geeks Marketing Mixer on Facebook. And next week's topic is the monthly wrap up of digital marketing or marketing in general, not just digital marketing.
Yeah, so join us next week, 11 o'clock, and if you're watching us at a different time, you can just come back where you are and watch the repeat next week too.
Thanks for joining, everyone.